We are now in, well, just outside the village of Morsenram, which is the wettest village in the world. But this is a sign of the wettest place on earth, right? It's about 2 kilometers just outside the village, the wettest place on earth. Now you can't see, we're covered in mist here now. Beautiful. It's not raining, praise God. It rained on the way, but here it's not raining at the moment. But there's pretty much, we're on top of the mountains. You go down in that area, and so the whole idea they explain it is because of the hot weather that's in the Bay of Bengal, been lifted up and then brought to this mountain, and then it all falls here. That is why this place is so super wet. This would have been the total opposite. Well, it is a total opposite of where I grew up, where we had our rainy season, which maybe a week if we're lucky, and sometimes a bit longer. It's supposed to be 2 months, but when it rains, you know, and one can never. We had more than ample time of going to church to pray that God will send rain in the rainy season. But here, I guess that people don't really need to pray for rain, although there's quite a number of churches here. I don't exactly know. As far as I know, again, Meghalaya is mostly lots of Roman Catholics, the biggest, mostly Christian, but the biggest groups among the Christians are the Roman Catholics, followed by the Presbyterians, and then the Baptists. All right, so let's continue with Exodus chapter 13, verse 17. Yes, so the people going into the desert, now, yeah, they would have had not this opportunity of seeing a lot of rain. And so God is going to provide for them, or will have to provide for them, but as well heat, because it's cold in the desert at night, and it's hot during the day, so cloud cover, as we're going to see. Exodus 13, verse 17. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. Now, there's sometimes such, well, I mean, this is kind of a long verse. Remember again, Bible was written in chapters and verses. So, but anyhow, when it's divided, this is pretty long sentence here. It's not like as long as the Puritans and their books and their sentences, their books, right? Which is like a whole half a page is one sentence. But anyhow, so why I'm getting at this is quite long, but there's quite a lot here, right? And you might miss out on a lot of this. And it's seemingly going to contradict maybe something that's going to come shortly after this. And those kinds of contradictions always lead people to, oh, but it's written by the one, the P class, or it's written by the other group, right? The priestly class, or the Yahweh's group, or whatever, right? But I will get a little bit more to that a little bit later. So, what we first see is God did not lead. So Pharaoh let the people go, right? You know, he kind of had, at that stage, no choice anymore. God did not lead them straight up the Mediterranean to go into the east. He didn't lead them through the easy road next to the sea, basically, right? He took them, you know, like it says, it was near, right? So we all understand if you had to, if you want to take a trip there, that is the easiest way is to go from Egypt into Gaza, right? Now, it's not the easiest way today, understandably, as we know, especially for aid going in or not going in around. Well, I actually kind of still go in that way, just to the side of Gaza, if you go and look at the map. But that's not, again, not so much the important part here. But that would have been the easy road up, not around and then through the Jordan at the end, around the Dead Sea, basically. Now, there was a road like that, the King's Highway. Okay, but they're not going to stick to the King's Highway. They're going to be to the east of that. They're going to walk on the King's Highway for a bit before they enter, right? But at that stage, even the majority of the time is not going to be spent, because I don't think the other people would have been too happy with this group of people, if they were 1 point, and I would say they were over 1 million people, clogging up with the King's Highway. That would not have been fun for the trade going up and down. Anyhow, that's not as well where God wanted. They wanted them to decide for his specific reasons. And one of the reasons we see here is, although that land was near, but God did not take them that way. Why? So the people won't change their minds when they see the war and return to Egypt. So because, I mean, that is where lots of the nations that ultimately they're going to need to conquer live. And so if they go now, these people are just going to put up a barrier. Now, we're not going to happy. Remember, you must remember that Egypt was a superpower of the day, and these other countries where they're going to in, a lot of them were under the control in one or another way of Egypt. So yes, the Egyptians as well at the same time would have like forced them to, maybe the Egyptians, after if Pharaoh rethought his whole plan, sending them out, might have thought, I can just tell those guys to be that buffer and then basically to force them back to come and work for me again. Right. But anyhow, how the chance of war in that area with all these other nations living would have been a lot bigger. Going around into the desert where no one is living, and even up till today, basically, right? It's a lot easier. The area is clean. There's not clean in the sense of clean in the sense of there's not no other people. It's underpopulated or is nearly not populated at all. Okay, so the people are not going to create such friction there with anyone because there's basically no one. It's a bit like how the Russians conquered Siberia. I mean, Russia is huge, and why? Because of Siberia. And why was it easy for them to conquer? Although, man, that's it's huge, and even today, finding your way on the roads is near to impossible because of swamps and some mountains, and not a lot of them, but there are, sure. And the forest. But yeah, the rivers there make it possible. There's very few people living there. So it's not like there are these huge wars lying for them, that there is hundreds of millions of people to go and fight against or something like that. No, there were basically no one. So it's easy to conquer. Now in this case as well. It's something as well that happened in South Africa with when the Zulus came down and basically cleansed out other tribal groups there. And so when the white voortrekkers came up, there were lots of empty spaces. Sure, not everything was empty ultimately, but there were. Okay, and yes, there were people living there as well, right? But a lot of them were not there. The land was kind of opened up because of other groups defeating other smaller groups in warfare. In this case, not so much. But what you see then ultimately is God's care. He did not. He was thinking. He knew. I mean, he knew. They're saying. I mean, God knew that these people are going to grumble and moan anyhow. God could have sent them there. They would have grumbled and moaned and asked to go back to Egypt. God did not send them there. Sent them another way where they didn't see any war. God provided for them for food, for water, with everything, and they grumbled. They were going to grumble. That's just that. That's just a fact of life. They were going to grumble. But, and this is the important point, their grumbling is unjustified. Totally unjustified. Because we see here, later in the book, we read about them grumbling the whole time about this, that, oh, we only need manna, one meat as well. And then God sent them meat. Only this water, its pH is not 7, right? It's not good water. We can't drink it. And then God will cleanse the water. And there's no water, rock, and then water will come out, kind of idea. Not you're supposed to speak to the rock anyhow, Moses. But, right, they are going to groan and moan. And here, why this verse is kind of important is because here it states that was not, how to put it, not God's intention. God from his side did everything as a perfect father for them not to moan and groan. Therefore this verse is written. Therefore these few little words added so as to show God did not take them there because he did not want them to go there, so that they won't think of, oh man, we're just going into a war. We're just fighting a war here. We need to go around. We need to go around. We want to go back. We want to go back. And then they can say, yeah, well, the reason why we groan and moan is because God took us on the wrong road. If God would have taken us on a different road, we would not have. So, it's stated. Moses telling his people, this is why we didn't go with it. Not because I didn't know the road, not just because I wanted to like go back to Zion and where I saw God there in the burning bush and all of those kinds, not just so they can go and visit the in-laws again and just take all the nation with me to show them where I grew up. No. Is so that they wouldn't see war and then moan and grumble and ask to go back. So when they're going to moan and grumble and asking to go back to Egypt, it's not going to be because of God, because God did anything wrong. It's going to be because of themselves. We are sinners not because of something that God did. We always love to tell God, no, you are the guilty one. Adam, Eve, there in the beginning. Here, same thing. They're going to do exactly the same thing. Moan and groan, want to go back. But Moses, with the sentence, with these few words, showed that there's no justification for that. Absolutely no justification. So you groan and moan, and man, trust me, I've moaned and groaned the last 2 days quite a lot about the whole situation, and in the end I did decide to spend money on and get a taxi to come here to this place. Otherwise I would not have, and I would have missed it all just for the sake of $60, which is something, but still. No, it was not God, it was more me. And we love to moan and groan about everything. You know, God's not this, God's not that. Why do I have this? Why do I have that? God, remember, why do I have a near blind kind of always, why this and why that? And on the way here, we were speaking just with a brother, joined, and about counseling. And he said, one thing that we do, I don't want to downplay counseling here, but the one thing that sometimes we as Christians forget is, instead of just focusing on you and your problems, everything that bad was done to you as a child or wherever, but first to lay the foundation of focusing that person with the problem on God, right? On the beauty of who God is. Okay, now this is not such a beautiful place. What is so beautiful is, I guess, the fact that there's lots of water here, but there's lots of forest down there, understandably. But still, there are different kinds of flowers here. God's beauty shines through everything He has created. God did all this for us. We don't really need, we can't go on, oh, when something bad happens, where is God? Kind of idea. We always moan and groan. But like they say, when we need to stand up for the truth, when we need to, why are they taking out prayer from the school, stuff like that, discipline from the school and stuff like that, we're like, oh yeah, let them do it. But then something bad happens, oh no, where is God? We need to stop moaning and groaning and understand, take our responsibility in counseling, therefore, focus on God and the beauty of who God is, ultimately. So like here as well, they moan and groan, no need for it. If they would have focused on the perfect fatherhood of God and leading them out. Not that way, but another way, so they would not see the war immediately and then logically have reason to moan and groan.